Welcome to the Resellers Podcast with Tech and Sports and Daily Refinement. We've helped thousands of people save time and make more money by improving their online stores. Check out patreon.com/the Resellers Podcast for thousands of hours of full-length ad-free podcasts and coaching calls. Join our Facebook group with thousands of sellers making the transition from hobby to business. See you in the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Resellers Podcast with Tech and Sports and Daily Refinement. And today we have a special guest from the trenches, Isaiah. He's here to represent all the people who are not consistent yet, don't have a business making six figures, don't have multiple things going on yet. So Isaiah, not making six figures profit yet, but you want to start us off?
Yeah, I guess first I'll just introduce myself so people who don't know who I am can be aware of me. My name is Isaiah. I'm a six-figure shoe seller in the group. I host the shoe call with Nina and Alfredo. They're also six-figure sellers. We do six figures in sales each year. However, I don't think any of us are at six figures profit yet. Furthermore, I host the beginner call every morning after Chris's morning call, and that's pretty much who I am. And I'm just here to ask you guys some questions. So this morning we were talking about, I had a question for you, Chris, and I would love to talk to you and Tech about this in more detail. It's very common for us to hear people say, hey, I can't increase my listing goal because I don't have enough cash flow, or I can't do X, Y, or Z because my cash flow won't allow it, right? They can't buy shelves. They can't buy a computer. They can't close on this big deal because their sales are not high enough. And that made me wonder a little bit about how does that actually happen? And I think the real reason might be mismanaging cash flow. And I think there's a lot of ways how we may actually be doing it. And I want to talk about those ways a little bit later on. But my thought process was yeah, I know right now sales are slower for a lot of people, but if sales dip sometimes, it also should mean that they go up sometimes as well too, right? So if sales do go up periodically, then what are we doing with that extra money? For example, if your business model is I buy shoes for $5 and I sell them for $20 or $25 or $30. If that's your model, then what happens with the extra money when you buy a shoe for $5 and sell it for $70, or you sell it for $100, $150? What happens to that money? What's going on there? Why is that the case? If you can sell an item for $100 and all of us have done that, and that gives us an extra $80 in profit right there. And that's 3 days of shoes if you do 5 a day. What's going on?
Am I answering first?
Sure.
Okay, I'll answer first. So I've always had a secondary income. So I think that when I give the advice, don't live on your eBay income in the beginning. I did not live on my eBay income in the beginning. So I feel like it's a little bit different for people who are paying their bills and their gas and their rent out of the money that's coming in from eBay. I never really considered that money coming in as my own. I thought, okay, start with 10, double it. Now I have $20. Now the business can buy 2 items. I still have nothing. I never thought of that as my own for a while, at least until the point where, we talk about in a specific podcast called the Advanced Podcast, how to grow your business. And there's a certain point where you have enough money to buy your inventory every day, and there's $1 extra. At that point, you now have extra money to buy equipment and et cetera. And that's how I've approached it. So I've never really thought about trying to live on it along the way, because it's not enough in the beginning. That's how I looked at it.
As a quick piece of context for everyone else that's listening, I actually, unlike Chris, I didn't full-time job it in addition to reselling. I've only been doing this. So every time I do about $17,000 to $18,000 in sales a month, and that ends up being around $9,000 to $10,000 in cash flow going into the bank account. So I have to buy my inventory with that, pay the bills with that, so on and so forth. So I can totally understand what you mean. That's one of the mismanaging of cash flows that I was going to talk about a little bit later. But what about you, Tech? What do you think? Because you specifically told me the problems that I'm having with cash flow, when you were at my tier, you weren't necessarily having those same issues. So what was causing it so that you didn't have those cash flow issues despite also being at the 30 items a day tier?
Because in my nature, I'm a saver and not a spender. And I think a lot of people in this business, and just by human nature, are spenders. And on the Tuesday call, we got into some discussion about keeping records, plotting stuff. What should we keep track of? All kinds of stuff like that. And this weekend, I was looking for something that I wanted to show somebody. So I had to look through some of my old stuff. And when I was looking through my old stuff, I came across a bunch of notebooks that I had from my eBay business and my other businesses that were several years old. So I pulled out a notebook from 2017, and this shows a graph that I used to plot every single month. And it showed my sales, my profit in relation to 2 years prior. So I have a graph from 2015, 2016, 2017. And this is the graph. I used to do this by hand. This is old paper. Like it's not made up. This is old. I have this. And what do you notice on the graph? That we start to see patterns. Like Isaiah said, our sales are going great. What happens usually when people say their sales are growing great? What do they usually do?
Eventually go back down.
No, they go out and spend a bunch of money that they think they're going to have forever. But if you look after my sales are going great 2 years in a row, what happened? They went down a little bit, right? This is where we are today. And a lot of people are sitting here right now, what? Absolutely screwed, because they thought this trajectory was forever. This is not forever. The sales went down. They picked up at the same exact time. They're going to go down and they're going to pick up again in fourth quarter. You guys look at things on a day-to-day basis. Look at the day-to-day basis. It's up and down. It is never straight up like a rocket ship. So a lot of people look at their business on their best month, and that's what I'm going to have forever. You have to look at your eBay business on your worst month, in my opinion, or at worst on an average. So some of these months, 2017, I could tell you exactly how much I made per month, and I could tell you exactly how much I made to the day back in 2017. I have all of this. So if you're not keeping track, if you're not plotting, if you're not paying attention to the numbers, to the sales, to your profit, to how much you're spending, you're living in a total fairyland, and everything is false. The numbers do not lie. So by looking at this graph, as a reseller who in 2015 or 16 didn't know as much as I know today, I know, okay, I need to be conservative right now, even though I'm balling out and we're going straight up. I need to be conservative because what's going to happen in the next couple of months? It ain't going to be like it's going. The trajectory is not going to remain the same. And sure, people say, well, I'm a new seller. I don't have the data. Neither did I. But I started tracking it, and then now I do have the data. And this is before eBay had a traffic screen, a sales report, this and that, all of these fancy things and printouts that they give you, which makes it a lot easier. I was doing this by hand. Look at this. I was tracking my numbers every single day by hand, writing it down every single day. You guys could do the same thing. And by doing this, I was in total control of the business. And that's why I never made mistakes with the money, because I knew money was coming fast, but it ain't going to come fast forever. And you need to have money for the rainy days, for the slow times. But the quote unquote slow times are not slow times. It's called seasonality. And people need to understand the difference between slow times and seasonality when they look at from a business perspective. Because I can bust out the crystal ball right now. The next 4 or 5 months, very slow. After that, we're going to see an uptick. Bring it to the bank.
I had that same conclusion this morning when I said, you got to do your business based on your worst day. Or some days you're not productive at all. Then some days your store is not productive at all. You're not making money some days. If on a bad day you list 10 and on a good day you do 30, but you never list less than 10, you can take that 10 to the bank, because that's easy for you, because that's the low end of your range. So I've been asking people, like, how much money are you making each month? And people will say, well, it's easy to make $3,000. Now, that's your lower baseline. If it's easy for you to make 3, that's what you're doing on the off days. But if you want to make more, that's where all these things we talk about in the group, understanding your numbers. And if you understand you have $300 extra at the end of the month and you put it in the new inventory, and then the next month, that $300 a month you put into 2 new tires, and you look at the difference. I think seasonality also happens when you sell a bunch of your great items. That's very confusing when you have a rock star month and then you didn't replace those rock star items, and the next month you didn't do anything different, but your sales are way lower, that throws people way off. But your better items tend to sell first.
So, like you said, when people have an extra $300, they put it into new inventory. That is like a growth mentality that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
What's wrong with having an extra $300?
That's right.
Let's have an extra $300 and let's stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then month number 2, we have an extra $300. We have $600 in the bank. If you stay the same for 1 year, your business will grow, because we've never met the person who has a 101% sell-through rate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that person is not here. So our business will continue to grow, get larger. Our store will get larger. Our online presence will get larger. If we're not buying garbage, our click-through will remain the same or get better. So our allocation of sales will continue to go up as our stores increase. And if you just hold that extra money at the end of the year, instead of feeling like, I need to reinvest and grow, I need to reinvest and grow, I need to do this and grow, you sit tight for a year, you're going to have $10,000 or $20,000 in the bank as an absolute safety net. And you can make a lot more different decisions and other decisions because you have options. And if you have $20,000 in the bank, you don't get into that situation where you become desperate. And when you're desperate, you make bad decisions, because now maybe you're purchasing inventory on more of a speculation or a gamble. Like, I could do this and maybe it doesn't work out, but like, I'm desperate at this time, so like, I need to make this move. Or let me just go with the sure thing, put my capital to work. And then at the end of the month, I know I'll have $300 extra waiting for me that I don't have to redeploy inside of the business to keep it maintaining. And I can put that into the bank and keep it and have a safety net, because there is no insurance for hustlers on eBay. There's no 401k for hustlers on eBay. Like, your insurance and your 401k is you being smart and managing your money.
I didn't really take practice of this until a few months ago, where I decided that I was going to put the same amount of money in the cost of goods each month, versus, let me give you an extreme example. I think most people go on the $300 extra, spend $300 extra, don't have any money, don't spend any money at all. So they either spend everything or spend nothing. But if you spend the same amount every single month, then you're not in that yo-yo pattern of like, when things are good, buy a bunch of inventory. When things are bad, don't buy any inventory. I think you don't have that rainy day fund if you keep putting 100% of it back into the machine. And there is going to be times for sure where your sales are down.
Absolutely. And Hanley said in the chat, don't you have to grow your store to a certain size to get to the point where you can start stacking cash instead of reinvesting? The answer is no. On my very first sale, I bought a T-Mobile Sidekick for $30. I sold it for $70. I went out and bought 2 more. So I spent $60 and I stacked 10. I didn't stack $1 million. I didn't stack $10,000. My very first sale, I was stacking cash. $10 went to the side. So no, like, you're not going to come out the gate stacking thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars a day, but you can come out the gate stacking $10, $5, $3 per sale, $8 per sale. And once you start selling 10 items and you're stacking $20 per item, now you're $200 a day just going straight to the side. Your original principal, your original investment of that item can get redeployed into a better item. And there's no cash out of pocket to run this business. After your first sale, you should not have to put any other kind of principal into the business unless you are going to do a non-organic growth strategy, which we talked about a couple of years ago in October on the podcast labeled Advanced eBay.
So to put this into a per item analogy, let's say that you buy something for $10. You sell it and you make $10.01 profit. Now you can buy 2 items, and that 1 penny signifies stacking from the very first sale. That 1 penny is the part that, so we've been talking about it for a long time, but now I understand that 1 penny happens, it can happen right away. If you don't make $10.01 and you make $9, you can't buy that second item and grow. You just have $9, which is okay. but you can't grow and stack. You just stacked $9, do not have an additional item. You're in the same place as you were before.
So let's talk about this. And there's a lot of pieces here. So you guys talked about many of the different ways that I found that people are mismanaging cash flow, including myself. So I want to talk about me, and then I don't want to like talk about sellers as a whole because they might not be doing this stuff. But like the one that you guys say the most often is like buying a steak dinner, right? Like you go make some extra money, you go get a steak dinner, and as a result, your money goes to die. Like that makes sense. But I found that the most common ways that I was losing the money was due to doing what you guys were just explaining with the $300. So let's say I make an extra, $800 in cash flow this week because I had a great sales week. I would take that $800 instead of letting it sit in my bank account. I would go, okay, I need to go spend this on some shoes. So I would go to Ross, I go to TJ Maxx, I go to Marshalls, I'd go to, a new shoe store, and I would go put money into some new shoes. And by doing that, unfortunately, my ability to flip new shoes is nowhere as good as my ability to flip used shoes. But like when you think about it logically, it makes a lot of sense. You're diversifying your like exposure. You're able to sell new shoes and used shoes. So if something happens, you have multiple sources of inventory. So like there's a logical way for you to think, I should go buy this stuff, or like this is a really good deal, and you don't want to pass on it. So you go out to the store, you go buy that stuff. And unfortunately, you can't flip that the same way you're able to flip the money, flip the stuff that gave you the money in the first place. And like, that was the problem that I kept running into over and over again with the new shoes. And there's several other ways how that happened too. What are you about to say, Ted?
But like that's a disease of finding success and then doing something different. Yes. Why didn't you take that $800 and go buy the same stuff that made you the $800?
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Or 100%. Instead of spending the $800, do what? Spend $400 and put $400 in the bank and have that money as profit inside of your business for a rainy day. So if you have found success to the tune of $800 extra profit per week, why are you being so foolish and trying to do a different experiment, losing money? Do the same thing. And you don't even have to spend all your money. Just spend some of it.
So how much time do you spend, and it might be none, but like how much time do you spend experimenting on different strategies of acquiring inventory?
0. I bought one item, it sold, I bought it again.
Yeah.
That's what I've done the entire time. You don't see me going to Marshalls. I've never talked about going to Marshalls.
That's true.
I've never talked about doing retail arbitrage. Somebody last night on the media call said, hey, can you talk to me about buying stuff from Alibaba? And I said, no. They said, why? I said, I have absolutely 0 experience doing that. 0. If it's not buy one item that has a guaranteed profit that I'm buying under market and can put on the computer with a guaranteed profit, I'm out. You want to do something different? Talk to somebody else. Yeah. But if you want to learn how to buy something under market, collect the arbitrage in between and put it on eBay and make a profit and do that till the end of time, I'll talk to you all day. If you want to do something else, no, thank you.
This was a very, very hard lesson for me to learn, truly. Because like, for example, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about sniping stuff online, like being able to buy things off eBay and selling it back on eBay. Like if I would have heard that 2 years ago, you best believe that $800 would have went to, all right, let's go try to snipe some stuff. And I've done this before. I have a lot of hats underneath this table right here that I still haven't listed yet. And this is another way of mismanaging cash flow, by the way. Yep. But like I have a lot of hats underneath this table right here that I bought because of that same thing. I'm like, all right, let's try to learn how to do online arbitrage. Let's try to learn how to do retail arbitrage. Yep. And as a consequence, like that money died.
Okay, so let me tell you this. When you guys were having that conversation a couple of weeks ago about sniping, I won the sniping the sniping contest 2 weeks in a row. Mm-hmm. How many items do you think I actually went on eBay and sniped?
None, probably.
0.
Yeah.
0. No, thank you. But I showed the opportunities. But I'm not out here sniping stuff on eBay. Absolutely not.
So you figured out the path. Like your path is well paved. You know where you're supposed to be going. But for people who don't know where they're going, maybe online arbitrage is the move for them. Maybe, retail arbitrage. Because if you go look on Instagram, you go look at a lot of the shoe influencers, plenty of them are selling on, getting stuff from Ross, TJ Maxx, so on and so forth, right? But like Isaiah specifically, not capable of pulling it off. I've tried it many times, couldn't pull it off. So like, how do you know like what your actual path is if you're not stoned and paved yet,
Well, let's ask Chris. You've been down all the paths, and it kind of seems like you're settling in on something that you figured out that has worked.
So I think that the trap is you think it's easier. So you go out to the flea market or the thrift store or the Goodwill bins. It's dirty. It's not well lit. You're like looking through things. You don't know what. You find something. You do well, make a couple $100, and now you're like, you know what? I'm gonna go to TJ Maxx. It's well lit. It's beautiful. I'm gonna go pick up some awesome Nike. It's brand new. I don't need to clean it. It's like I can buy 10 of the same shoe. I don't need to list 10 different shoes. And then you enter in the Shark Tank of race to the bottom. You got to be the first one to sell or the last one to sell it. It's really expensive, paying $40 per pair of shoe. One size doesn't sell. You get a couple returns, and it's not easier. It sounds easier. The easier thing in reality is to do what made you the initial money the first time faster. That's easier, but it doesn't sound easier or fun. It sounds from somebody like, wow, that was a lot of work. I would like to try something that's a little bit easier. And then you move on to some different tangent, not realizing it'll definitely be easier just repeating what you just did. But I don't think that's a natural. I think the natural human thing is to look for something different and easier, not the same and easier. The same and easier is the result. Every time, like this morning, I was trying to ask people, what makes your reselling easier? Because that makes it more consistent. Like I don't like now thinking about how difficult it is to sell something completely different and looking at it from a project management point and not me looking for something cool to sell or not potential profit, but looking at all the different pieces required. It now seems more complicated to me because before I was looking at it as potential profit. There's potentially higher profit at Marshalls or TJ Maxx. I wasn't thinking about it as all the different things required to start a whole new niche in something totally different.
You didn't know that you didn't have the skills necessary to pull off the TJ Maxx Marshalls.
No, I just thought spend 40, double your money 80. That sounds a lot better than the thrift store.
Because there's 7 eBay comps that say that you can sell it for 80, but then you don't realize that as soon as you bought it, like 13 other people bought them as well, and now the price is 60. And you can hold them for 80 as long as you want, but you might never sell them.
Or the market's 40, but I'm going to try to get 100 for mine.
Yeah. Remember that guy with the three lives, Chris?
That's like etched in my brain because it was such a wake up call when the guy said, the comps say 60, but I'm going to ask 100. I've never, that to me was like the definition of potential, could be. Versus literally you just did it. You could do the same thing again. Not only is there historical precedent that it's happened before, you did it yourself. But people don't sell something and then go out and look for the same thing. Jack Weaver actually taught me that in the video game call. He does not do that. He sells something, it sells for a good profit. That gets added to the what you're looking for everyday list.
Mm-hmm. So I want to address what they said, what JR said in the chat. They said, so is the best advice still to find common daily used items and sell them versus trying to find home runs? I don't think that we're saying that. I don't think you're saying don't go buy items that you can get for $5 and sell for 150. Like by all means, if you find those are great. What the problem that I had, and I'm gonna explain this in more detail for everyone now. Like I would make the extra $800 and then I would go see a notification on my phone saying that Chris is doing a whatnot stream. So I would go try to buy a bunch of shoes from Chris on Whatnot, but like my ability to flip new shoes is nowhere as good as my ability to flip used shoes. I made that $800 selling shoes that I bought from the thrift store and then turning them over quickly, right? But like trying to do an entirely different game over and over and over again is what was causing me a bunch of issues. And like there's a lot of scenarios where people go, I'm really good at this. I'm going to go try to do this. And then there's severe consequences to it.
What you guys were talking about a minute ago was like you see a comp for 70 or 80 and you see several comps for $80. So like I think people get stuck in the mind state of trying to sell the item for $80 versus trying to sell items. Like businesses don't run on like price matching comps. Businesses run by selling many items. And the more items that you can sell, the more money that you will make. So when they have the market of, the shoes are $80, I've never considered that or thought of that. I'll price my item accordingly, but my market is my market. I'm here to sell items. I'm not worried about everyone trying to achieve what they see in the comps. So if I bought a shoe for $10 that the comps say sell for 80, I'll price accordingly. But if someone offers $50, $60, $40 even maybe, I'm selling the item and I'm up the road. I'm going to go buy 5 or 6 or 7 more items for $10 more. And I'm going to do the same thing and sell each one of them for $50 or $60 or $70. And by compounding the sales and compounding the money, I'm way ahead of everybody else who is price matching. They're running a price matching business. I don't price match. So like when you're looking at comps and you're like, oh yeah, we got to sell this for 80. That's a different, that's a different mind state. And like, there's different opportunities to doing that. And a lot of people get stumbled doing that because we're talking about cash flow. Our items are locked, or our money is locked in our items because we want to run a price matching business. Why is our money locked inside of our items instead of selling items for a profit and then going out and buy 2 or 3 or 4 more with that same money?
That for me, Tech, is like the difference between $250 in sales and like $400, $500 in sales.
Easily. And
like,
compound that 365 days a year.
Like easily.
And then compound that by 10 because of the lost opportunity that you don't have that money to go out and buy more items to do that 10-fold.
Yeah, because there's so many times where you get an offer that's not exactly. I freaking declined one during the shoe call. Someone sent me $22.50 and I wanted 25 or something.
Silly.
It's ridiculous. I could have sold that, got the money, and bought something else tomorrow.
Right. So after fees, what's the difference? $1.75?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
If I tell you there's $1.75 on the floor in the parking lot outside of your apartment building, you ain't even going to get up and go get it.
Exactly.
So what are we worried about?
Yeah, it's the same thing. And it's easily the difference between doing 250 sales a day, $250 in sales, and 500. Easily.
Absolutely. But
there's so many times where a customer sends you an offer and you're like, I really want to be here, but like, just like,
no problem. Run a price matching business. No problem with that.
I mean, let's say you're asking 80, but you're okay with 60. If somebody offers 70, do you give them $10 back? Because you wanted 60, so they paid too much, so you give them their money back because you're looking for that set amount. The part that really is helping me understand this, but I still, like, as an example, you have an item that's worth $100. That's what comp says. Somebody offers you 60. Let's say that you're paying $5 an item. $60 could be 10 items.
10 more opportunities for
10 more opportunities. But what if they're like $10, $40 items, and in your brain you're thinking, if I just wait a little bit longer, I'll get 75 for this item. I think that's where people get stuck with waiting for $15 after fees. That's $12 instead of 12 more items that they could put in their store.
12 more items that you could make $20 profit on.
Yeah. So that's
So I think because of the way that the three of us source, it's easier to like make that decision, right? Because we know that there are more items out there for us to get, right? We know that we can find more of these. But like, what if you spent 4 hours trying to get that one item, you know?
Isaiah, I made that decision when I was brand new to eBay.
Yeah.
There is no shortage of pre-owned quality items in the United States of America.
Yeah.
There's no shortage. Anyone can sell their item today and go out and get 4 more at any thrift store they walk into. And how many people go to the thrift and blank? Like, when's the last time you literally blanked?
I have not.
Never. You can walk into any thrift store in America and find 4 more opportunities.
I don't know. I feel like the sooner you believe that, the easier a lot of these other steps get. Like, it's true. Like, there's no limit to the, like you were talking the other day about a guy who they had a bunch of stuff that a lot of us view as rare, and like they have pallets and pallets of stuff. Like, it's
pallets.
So,
and if one person find those at a thrift, they'll make a YouTube video about it.
Yeah.
But this guy had pallets and pallets of it. Like, this stuff is not rare. This stuff is not unique. This stuff is out there every single thrift store in America. So like, it's not about the product. It's not about the item. It's about deploying your capital, getting more back and buying more items, processing more items, putting more items onto eBay, and then getting that capital back and doing the same thing continuously over and over. That is the name of the game. Any other game that you're playing is the wrong game.
I think there's a place where the chain breaks, and this is the other way how I feel like cash flow can be mismanaged. So you get the extra $400, $500, $800, right, in that week, and you go buy a bunch of stuff. However, like that stuff's in your project pile, or that stuff's in your, like, for some reason you're not listing it on eBay. It's too much work to deal with it. It's whatever, right? And like if I go. I got an example for you, a perfect example. I had a pair of Justin boots that I didn't want to spend 11 minutes to clean, right? Because I knew it would take a really long time. But like I sold those boots in 2 days for like $40. So I could have, and I bought those boots 6 months ago. So I could have cleaned those boots 6 months ago, got my $30 in cash flow, and then proceeded to like flip that money several times over. And like, how many other shoes do I have that I'm like, I shouldn't have picked it up in the first place, or two, like I should just go ahead and process it. So like, what about those scenarios where you go buy a jewelry lot or something like that, and you don't go through the jewelry lot, it just sits in the corner, like my hats that have been under my table for a year, right? Like how much money do we have that is went to die because it's locked up in our death pile? You know what I mean? Like I think that's another way. Like what if people's death piles are worth $100, like $500, $1,000, $5,000? If your death pile is worth $5,000, I think it's totally reasonable that over the course of a year, $5,000 can be $10,000 in this business. Easy. So if you can take $5,000 and turn it into $10,000, you have it sitting into a pile. Like that's another way of mismanaging cash flow. And like, that's why you're not able to buy what you need. Because if you had that 10K in your bank account, like how much damage could you do? You know what I mean? Like,
spend yourself out of business. Absolutely. That's the number one way people go out of business on eBay and reselling, is spending themselves out of business by buying more inventory that they need. If your listing goal is 10 items a day, you go out and you buy 70 items. Shame on you if you're going out and buying 100 items or 120 items or 150 items a week.
Tech has never overbought. And that, when he said that like maybe a month ago on one of the podcasts, it made me think, that's very different, because there's a capacity that you have. Everyone here has a capacity. And I always ask people, how many can you list each week? If you can list 70 a week, 71 is overbuying. Yeah. Especially if you have stuff already, the 71 is 52 too many items over the course of a year. And that's just one item too many. Mm-hmm. So, but most people have, I am sure people have hundreds or thousands of items extra. It's not only a few.
Sure. And like Isaiah's saying, like if I have an extra 400, if your first inkling and first thought is I got to go out and buy more stuff, you're doing it wrong. It should be, I have an extra $400 this week, period. Okay. You don't have to go out and run and go spend it.
Dude, that's so hard.
Yeah, I know.
It's really difficult.
Because we're having this conversation and you keep saying, I got an extra 400. Like you're ready to go spend it just talking about it. You don't even got the 400.
Thank you for listening to the Resars podcast with Tech and Sports and Daily Refinement. If you'd like to listen to the full episode, please check us out at patreon.com/the Resars podcast for all information, all our full-length episodes, over thousands of hours of coaching, and our Facebook mentorship group, which is $35 per month, just about $1 a day to help you get to the next level. We appreciate you guys. See you next time.